Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into a really profound toolkit today, specifically focusing on Chapter 3 from our source material, which is all about confronting distress in life. Our goal here is to equip you with practical ways to conquer modern anxiety and completely shift how you view your own daily struggles. Okay, let's dive into this with a pretty massive question. Why are we so prone to suffering? We all know the feeling, right? Life's daily grind can feel deeply, deeply overwhelming. We're constantly battling stress and anxiety. But what is actually causing this baseline level of distress day in and day out? Well, the source gives a remarkably blunt answer. It says it's basically because we wallow in self-pity and we constantly compare ourselves to others. You see, our day-to-day distress doesn't usually stem from massive, earth-shattering tragedies. It actually comes from the exhausting habit of comparing our own success, our wealth, and our status to the people around us. It's that constant friction between our own feelings and the opinions of others. And this anxiety of comparison takes a whole bunch of forms. Maybe it's fearing the loss of your social status. Maybe it's agonizing over a peer getting promoted faster than you, or letting outside opinions dictate your own self-worth. These are absolutely universal anxieties. We've all been there. But the text makes a harsh yet super necessary point here. If you rely entirely on external metrics for your happiness, you are setting yourself up for permanent unhappiness. If your joy depends on someone else's opinion, you're never truly in control. To put this into perspective, the source brings up a fascinating historical parable. Think of Alexander the Great. Here's a guy who literally conquered the known world, possessed ultimate power and massive wealth, and yet his desires were endless. He always wanted more. Now, compare him to the ancient philosopher Diogenes. Diogenes lived in a barrel. He possessed absolutely nothing, yet, as the text notes, he was perfectly content and completely free. It's like the ultimate showdown between external validation and internal peace. The text recounts this legendary meeting between the two. Alexander the Great approaches Diogenes and essentially offers him anything he desires. He's the most powerful man on earth, right? And what does Diogenes say? Stand out of my sunlight. That's it. He rejected the most powerful man in the world simply because Alexander was blocking his sun. Diogenes didn't want palaces or money or status. His happiness was so perfectly self-contained that a world conqueror had absolutely nothing to offer him but to just get out of the way of the sunshine. And this brilliantly illustrates what Chapter 3 calls the kingdom of the mind. It's a mental state where your happiness is entirely self-determined. It is completely unaffected by changing external environments or the opinions of others. True power isn't conquering the physical world, it's ruling this inner world. Because if you are the absolute monarch of your own kingdom of the mind, no external failure or criticism can ever dethrone your happiness. So the big question is, how do we actually achieve this? Well, the text outlines two actionable paths to resolving our distress, the macro and the micro. It argues that conquering life's daily mud requires both a wildly zoomed-out view of reality and an intensely zoomed-in focus on our daily actions. Let's take a look at the macro view first. The macro perspective can be summed up in this iconic, overarching mantra. The sun will rise again. I know it sounds super simple, maybe even a little cliche, but the text really asks us to reflect deeply on this truth. No matter how dark things seem right now, no matter how bad a failure feels today, the light inevitably returns. The sun setting is a fact, for sure, but its rising is an absolute guarantee. When you actually map this out, you start to grasp what's called the infinite viewpoint. Think about it. 1 year ago, the sun rose. Yesterday, the sun rose. Today, it rises. Tomorrow, it will rise again. When you view your life through this massive cosmic lens, that crushing workplace drama, or that financial hiccup, or that embarrassing social mistake you made, it all starts to look incredibly temporary. Your current troubles are just a brief shadow in a cycle of endless sunrises. Suddenly, the whole shebang feels a lot more manageable. But here is the catch. What do we actually do with our day when we are right in the middle of a crisis? If the macro view keeps us sane, the micro view tells us how to act. And the answer is pretty straightforward. Immerse yourself in the work at hand. When you face hardship, you don't panic. You just focus intimately on today's immediate tasks. The author gives us a highly practical guide for surviving the mud. Step 1. Stop grandstanding. When your pride is wounded, the absolute human instinct is to try and quickly fix it with some flashy move. Don't do it. Step 2. Avoid seeking external attention or validation when you fail. Seriously, don't go looking for sympathy or applause. And step 3, quietly immerse yourself in daily tasks and self-improvement. Just humbly focus on the grind. Don't dramatically overcompensate. Just do the work. I absolutely love this metaphor from the text. Recharge your internal battery away from public eyes. When you suffer a setback, your battery is drained. Trying to prove yourself to the rest of the world while you're running on empty is just going to lead to worse mistakes. True growth and true recovery during hard times happens quietly, far away from the spotlight. The text brings in another amazing piece of philosophical imagery here, finding peace in the mud, like Zhuangzi's pig. The ancient philosopher Zhuangzi famously said he would rather play joyfully in the mud like a pig than be burdened as a high-ranking minister of state. There is profound peace in just accepting a messy, simple reality. It is so much healthier than the exhausting, endless chase for high status and public approval. And all of this culminates in the core concept of our explainer today, Fudoshin, which translates to the immovable heart. It stands firm like a giant, unshakable tree. Surviving life's mud, quietly doing the work, and not relying on external praise is exactly how you build that deep, unseen root system. The wind might violently blow the branches around, but the trunk, it simply does not move. To really drive this home, the text shares a crazy historical anecdote about Thomas Edison. When Edison's laboratory, which literally contained his entire life's work, burned to the ground, he didn't despair. Actually, he calmly watched it burn and essentially said, "I can start over from zero." Why? Because he had an immovable heart. He knew the ultimate strength isn't preventing failure, it's knowing you can survive hitting absolute rock bottom and still rebuild. His kingdom of the mind was completely untouched by the fire. So, this brings us to our final question, and it's a really profound one to reflect on as we wrap up. Are you building a fragile ego or an immovable heart? Are you relying on the incredibly shaky foundation of what other people think of you? Or are you ruling your own kingdom of the mind? The next time you feel that sting of comparison or self-pity or just the crushing weight of a daily struggle, remember Diogenes in his barrel. And remember that the sun will without a doubt rise again. Stop grandstanding, do the work, and build your roots. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this toolkit serves you well out there.